Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. It's time for our analysis, spoiler discussion on The Green Knight. We got a lot to say about this one. We saw it twice. I took a lot of notes, trying to pay attention very closely to the symbols, the themes, the meanings in this work. We're trying to find what best supports the ultimate interpretation of like what we're supposed to take away from this film, what certain things mean. We're trying to find the best evidence to support it. So just to start with a couple basic plot things that you need to have hammered down in order to get into the meatier stuff. The Green Knight is Dev Patel's mother in the movie. If you don't buy this, it's very, very obvious when you look at the scene when the Green Knight enters the room. She conjures up and writes this letter, shoots it into the sky, and then the second that happens, the Green Knight opens the door and gives the same exact letter. It's a no-brainer. Okay, well, I don't know if he is the mother. Well, his mother is a witch. His mother is a witch who summons the Green Knight in order to spark Dev Patel's journey to become a knight, because he's not really going anywhere in life, realizing that everybody around him seems to be moving faster, or has more honor, and just has more of an interesting life in the eyes of the king. That propels him to go on this journey. The Green Knight plays a game with Dev Patel that, should Dev Patel accept his challenge and cut his head off, a year later, Dev Patel will meet the Green Knight and have his head cut off by the Green Knight. It seems clear that whatever blow Dev Patel delivers, that identical blow will be delivered to him later. It's even illustrated in like the puppet game. So this seems pretty clear that this is in fact an existential threat. Even though some people say like, oh, there's maybe a little ambiguity. Like, it does seem pretty clear that this is going to happen, with one caveat, that if he wears the sash, he's not supposed to get his head cut off, because his mother's witchcraft is going to protect him against this. But Dev Patel thinks that when he does this thing, he will become an honorable man. The kind of person who in this town is like, decorated or celebrated. But also at the end, when he says, "Is this all there is?" before getting his head cut off, and the Green Knight says, "What else would there be?" I think he expects something. He expects there to be more than just his head getting cut off. He expects to essentially become a knight, to gain honor. And these are things that Dev Patel's character doesn't even seem like he knows what they really mean. Like when he's telling Joel Edgerton, when I go to the Green Knight, I will get these things that I want. And he just sounds clumsy telling that character what he will achieve, because I don't think he understands it. I think that he sees that his society values things like honor and noble death. And all he knows is that he wants it. And there's something about the idea that the whole Green Knight challenge itself is this game. And the implication of like a game is that really like it's kind of vapid. Like it doesn't mean anything. It's just a joke. There's no consequence. But he really takes it seriously, which is a little bit of like an existential play. The fact that he's expecting something greater to happen, perhaps even in death. But in the end of the day, he might just lay on the floor and rot into the grass. But given that the sash is supposed to protect him, I think he expects that he will live, but obviously like the idea of this massive thing like swinging their axe at you is going to make you flinch. But he should expect to live if he trusts that the sash is going to protect him. In my opinion, the sash does protect him because it makes him flinch. As long as he's wearing the sash, he flinches. I think the sash is trying to represent things about himself that he knows are like not knightly. And so a knight could come up to the Green Knight and just be like, cut my head off, and not flinch. And that's what a knight does. A knight is portrayed as somebody who doesn't have enough cares for anything else in the world other than this pursuit of honor. So a knight is somebody who will just die for glory, unquestionably. And Dev Patel is fundamentally not a knight. He's very insecure about the fact that he just knows that is not who he is. And whenever somebody mentions to him, like, you're not a knight, he's like, offended by it. Well, I don't think it's necessarily that he just is not a knight, but he hasn't proven himself to be a knight yet. He has yet to become a knight. Well, I think he is for sure not what he thinks a knight is supposed to be. In terms of the sash being there because it makes him flinch, I'm not really sure like how that's the case. But it's only when he takes it off that he will not flinch. I mean, the whole thing about what the sash is like weird to me. So the sash originally is that which protects him from getting his head chopped off, or really from any harm coming to him on this journey / game. However, the sash does seem to take on like another meaning, because the wife in the castle seduces him. And as she gives him the sash, it sort of becomes this symbol of his own failure, because a knight would not succumb to temptation as he just did. She tells him, you're not a knight. And this is also part of like the test to see whether he is a knight given by his mom. The blindfolded lady is sitting in the room, which seems to mean that the mother is like
manufacturing this whole situation.
She's orchestrating every event, basically.
After that, he leaves the castle because he knows in a way that he's failed his mission. We can see that he knows he's done something bad because he refuses to give Joel Edgerton the sash, which he's sort of asking for. He's saying, we know you got something in there, but you're not giving it up. So he's hiding this sash from him, I guess because he's ashamed of what he did, and it just represents that for him. Or because he feels that he needs this sort of protection when it comes to the Green Knight, right? Like, the other reason could be because he wants to survive the Green Knight's blow, and the sash is supposed to protect him from that.
Also, the sort of giving in to the Alicia Vikander character in the castle, it's at once like him being lustful and therefore not a knight or whatever, but the Alicia Vikander character is also just reminding him of how much part of him does want that character back at home. He probably would enjoy the life where he makes her his lady. In a way, that's what he wants, but the promises of like honor and knighthood are more intriguing to him. In a way, it seems like he could choose that life where he just doesn't go on the mission, he doesn't play the game, and he lives a life that's kind of mediocre. And as Alicia Vikander says, a life where he's good, not great. Why isn't good enough? She also says, well, this is how silly men perish. And then he says, or how honorable men become great. And so it seems like there's this choice that he has between choosing this life of tenderness or choosing this life of being a knight. And fundamentally, the part of him that he doesn't want to believe is there is that he is someone who is pulled towards that tenderness, which I guess prevents him from being a knight, is what the movie's trying to go for.
So a knight is a person who resists tenderness. And we see the fruition of what the life of a knight can mean when we get this vision in the end, right as he's about to be axed, where he goes home and is recognized as a knight and puts aside all the tenderness in his life, like Alicia Vikander, and just goes through the motions of what it means to be king, and has all the glory in the world, and he also has all the coin in the world. But this is ultimately like very unfulfilling. We get this like beautiful shot where he's in his castle and everything is crumbling around him. People are leaving around him. All he's left with at the end is like this green sash, which sort of represents like that tenderness, right? That he's been sort of hiding or like wearing as a badge of shame. Like he's ashamed of the fact that he succumbed to this tenderness.
Or it's just who he is. He's ashamed of who he really is.
Well, who he really is he is like somebody who is, we're all like tender people.
His humanity. He's almost ashamed of his humanity.
What really makes him a human. He doesn't become more human because he is this decorated knight, ultimately, I think is what the film is very clearly going for. So after he has this vision of how like terrible his life could become, should he become king and should he really pursue glory, he just takes it off and says like, that life is completely not worth it to me. I don't want anything to do with that. In the end, it results in death. And so like, what's the difference between that life giving me death and then me just like accepting that I might find death right now? A knight is just completely vapid and dead on the inside. He comes to terms with the existential question of like, what does it mean to have glory? It means absolutely nothing.
And there's a really important moment in that sort of flash forward sequence where he watches his son die in war. And the only thing his son really is to kind of show for it is like this dumb fucking ring around his head. Is that the gift that his son was given for just dying for nothing? It also reminded me of the scene earlier where he meets Barry Keoghan's character, and they're walking through like these muddy remains of this war zone. And there's a lot of dead bodies everywhere. And Dev Patel asks Barry Keoghan, why aren't these people given burials? So the idea here is that a lot of these people in this world are living in the pursuit of noble death. If your death is noble, but you do not get this burial, you do not get the glory behind the death, that's disturbing to Dev Patel. He's like, why would, like, these people should have a burial. Instead, they're just rotting into the ground. Much like the vision that Dev Patel has where he is rotting into the ground. When he's tied up, the camera spins around and it comes back to him and he imagines himself as just having died there and kind of disintegrating into the earth. The other important thing to note about this moment is how everything seems very vibrant and green. There's even a green bug crawling across his face. There's like the sun's shining on him, and something about it is like this peacefulness in death of kind of succumbing to nature. The green that will envelop you, like it's going to get you no matter what. That monologue that Alicia Vikander has, the green is going to come for you. Like we wash it away, we scrub at it, but it will always come back. Every footprint that you make will eventually be filled with green. It almost reminds me of like the shimmer in Annihilation. It's just something that you're going to succumb to no matter how hard you try to resist it. So it also resembles something natural.
It works very well as a stand-in for death.
I'm not saying it's not death.
The color agreement in the poem, you could just like put the word death in there and it would make a lot of sense.
But it's a type of death that's different. Because there's two kinds of death. There's the honorable death, and then there's like the just dying in the dirt in the woods and nobody cares. Those are the two things. The dying in the woods is what people in this world fear. And the other one is what they spend their entire lives pursuing. Spending your whole life pursuing the honorable death is often something that can be unfulfilling. And I guess with green representing death, but also representing nature, it in a way could represent some of those natural desires that Dev Patel is suppressing in order to pursue that noble death, which is maybe why the sash is also green, because it represents the part of himself that is real and natural, that he wants to suppress. In a way, when he chooses to get his head cut off, maybe he is choosing that death where he just sits in the grass and just like kind of dies.
I mean, in a weird way, it almost seems like it's saying, I don't even mind if I am struck down like right here. Like it doesn't necessarily matter to me. I have nothing to gain. It would almost be like if you became enlightened, but then you said, well, why not just like jump off a bridge? Like, why not? If you're awake to the true nature of reality and you just see that it is all going to be washed away in this like green or this death, and it doesn't really matter what you do, then like, why not just die? Which is a weird conclusion. Like,
and this is where I get into a little bit of an issue with the movie, because I don't think that it's about how nothing you do matters. I think it's about how he should have chosen Alicia Vikander. He should have made her his lady. He should have chosen a life where he decides to be good, not great. And instead, it just feels weird that he chooses death, and that in death he finds his own type of honor that is different from the type of honor that he
and
thought
knighthood. He also finds knighthood by accepting that he is not this knight. It's a weird paradox where he says like, I'm no knight, I have failed my mission, and then the Green Knight says, well done, you are now a knight in a way, because you have the ultimate courage, to admit that and understand how we are all human, which is sort of like the key that he needed to find the whole movie. So he understands that, but then he's like, no, well, now I have the courage to do what a knight would do, which is just lie here and accept my death. Whereas I feel that like the truly human thing would be to flinch. Like the flinching itself, the act of flinching, is just fundamentally human.
You made a great point too, that when Alicia Vikander's baby is taken from her, she flinches.
Yeah.
Like, because she's somebody who does not just go by the code of honor.
Or the code of honor is just ugly, and it goes against our nature. It goes
she
against
doesn't believe
our
in
tenderness.
it because she represents the tenderness. And in a way, it felt like there are two worlds that Dev Patel could choose. He could choose the unfulfilling, honorable life, or he could choose the world of tenderness. And I don't feel like him choosing death feels like him choosing the world of tenderness, because it feels like he should flinch, run home, get Alicia Vikander, refuse to be king if that's what it takes, and live a life of mediocrity. That's what I feel like he should do, and I don't think that the movie presented a reason for me to believe that he couldn't have done that. I don't know why he doesn't do it. And the other reason that I think that he could do that is because we're told that the whole thing is just a game. When Sean Harris says, "'Tis only a game," it's like this existential fear of that, oh my God, this is only a game, like it's not real. And yet he chooses to indulge in the game. And I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like he should have ran home, realized the game is a game, and chosen the life of tenderness.
I think it's also an accurate observation that this whole quest for honor is a game that he's playing with himself. Because there's nothing inherently about this that's going to make him honorable. It's all about how he approaches the situation, and he approaches this situation with the utmost seriousness. And that is what he really should be like overcoming by the end, is saying like, wait, I'm just doing this in order to change my outlook on myself. I don't necessarily need this game to do it, and I've only used it as a means to achieve this end, but the game itself is not going to offer me anything. It's like a sort of absurd paradigm that I'm putting myself into in order to feel that I am worthy of something. Everything in the film makes me believe like he's actually going to die. Like his head will be cut off. He doesn't have the sash. That was something that he needed to not die. And the Green Knight said he was going to return an identical blow. So I'm here thinking like his head is definitely gone by the end. And I don't know why he had to fucking die in the end of this movie in order to achieve like honor and courage, but it's something that a knight would want. And the point is, I think he does gain the courage of a knight, which I think is important to say that he can gain the courage of a knight, but also fundamentally be human and not a knight.
Yeah, because he has to accept that those parts of him that he didn't want to acknowledge.
Yeah.
Like, he can still be a knight by being someone who owns up to that. But the fact that it still almost plays into the idea that he needs to be a knight at the end anyway.
I feel that the film is very clearly like pushing me into a direction. And then just the very end, it's like, wait, but then why does he just like sit there while he's going to chop his head off? Because the option of running away does seem very real. Like, if he truly doesn't believe there's anything to pursue because this is a game, then like he should just escape the game. But instead he treats the game like with utmost seriousness in that final act where he's just like standing there and not flinching.
David Lowery changed the ending. So in the original text, it's actually that the Green Knight lets him off with like a nick on the neck, and he wears the sash as a form of bearing his shame openly. And the people in the town are like, hey, I actually admire that you're bearing your shame and your humanity openly. We should all wear sashes to bear our shame. It's a little cheesy, but it is an ending, I think, that fits a little better with what, you know, happened beforehand. And, you know, with the addition, I would also have wanted to see him get together with his lady. I think what the movie is attempting to say is that he saw this life, decided he didn't want it, and decides he will bear the sash, show his shame to the Green Knight, and accept that he'd rather die like authentically and with all his flaws than pretend to be something he's not.
The fox also presents him with this option. Like, he does have the option to bear the sash to the fox and then just go home and just live with the fact that he is a human, that he's not, and not strive to become this like hardened knight.
And the fox also says like, come home to me. And when the fox says that, you actually hear Dev Patel's mother's voice coming through the fox. So in a way, that made me think maybe his mother in this movie is a force that is trying to make her son realize why he should come home and not want to live this life of a knight. Although I don't think that that's what it's going for, because it seems like his mother is out there purely to just test him, to see if he has what it takes to be a knight. But there's also a lot of ambiguity there as to whether or not she wants him to be a king or she wants him to kind of cower on home. I couldn't really tell.
I also just want to comment on some of the things in the film that don't feel like they tie into the themes, but are just part of the story, like the scene where he saves the girl's head. I think he has to do some things in order to make him a knight. So I kind of like that in some sense it just has to indulge and be an adventure. And so not everything has to like feed into the ultimate theme or meaning of the film. So I guess I don't really criticize it for that, but
I wouldn't say it necessarily doesn't. It's one of the things that I have a harder time understanding, but I do think that in the Winifred scene, there's that moment where he says, if I get your head, like, what will you give to me in exchange? And she's like, why would you view this as an exchange? And there is this sort of motif of exchanges and gift giving. And when he gets her head, she actually does give him the gift of an axe, but it's not viewed as an exchange. And it did make me think about the moment where when Alicia Vikander gives up her baby, there are just some coins plopped on the bed. But then there's gift giving, which in the house of Joel Edgerton, gift giving is like a big thing. She gives him the gift of the heart. The short-haired Alicia Vikander gives him like the little bell, I guess. I don't know if it's more of a gift or a token. Joel Edgerton's also giving him like lots of animals from the woods.
But to tie that together, is giving a gift essentially doing something without pretension? Like saying, well, if I give you this, you have to give me like exactly the amount in whatever universal currency we've established.
I think gift giving is just like nicer.
Yeah, it's nicer and more pure.
There's also the moment where the fox says, your gifts are not wanted here. Like, your gifts will do you no good if you go further. It's a thing. I'm not 100% on it, but it's
I also don't understand like why Joel Edgerton wants the sash, because he does kind of need it with the knight, or he's supposed to have it. Like, I don't know if that's like supposed to be important to the story.
The giant scene I do have trouble with. I don't know if that really means much at all. But
yeah, but I don't think you need to have trouble with it, because it was like possibly the most gorgeous scene in the movie. There are so many little things that feel like they might mean a lot that I can't totally get my bearings on. But overall, this would be like my take on the film. And the inconsistent piece is just that very ending for me. Some things are very clear of like what it's going for, and I like that it's going for a deeper meaning and not just trying to be like this purely cerebral thing. Like, you could reflect on this film in terms of your own life and like or just about life in general. And I appreciate that that's there for you to snack on. But other parts, like, you can really get like caught up and lost in like trying to figure out what everything is. To me, it was almost like maybe I tried to do that too much, but it also felt like I was being asked to do that. I like when I feel I can totally dive into a film and take any piece of it and then like bring something back from it. And this film, in my analysis, it just felt like I was reaching for things, and I would pull a lot of like the balls in the ball pit towards me, but other ones I would like look at them and I'd be like, I don't know what to do with that, don't know what to do with that, like I'm not sure what this is, and I can't completely swim in the film, if that makes sense.
But I think that wanting the movie to piece together really well comes from appreciating a lot of things about it and seeing so much in it that we want it to come together.
Yeah,
really
I mean,
satisfying. So there are a lot of things about this that resonate with me, like the vapidness of the pursuit of knighthood and how unfulfilling that is for people, and how that's like the dominant view of this world versus the ability to choose tenderness and a life that is maybe not great. It's also kind of comments in a way on masculinity and like this idea that men need to pursue honor, whatever that means. And I think that if there's any angle it seems that David Lowery brought the hardest to the story, it's the existential angle. The idea of death being tied into nature, I think, is a really cool idea. And there being like this piece behind choosing that type of death, and how everybody in the society has the sinking into the ground and dying as their fundamental fear, I think, is a really cool idea.
So hopefully this made the film more rich for you. If you think we missed anything, you can tell us. You can debate. You can make your own videos, and you can link them in the comments, because I will watch other analysis videos.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. What kind of death is coming to you?